Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and to another one of my videos. This time we're looking at one of the part exchanges that I have just purchased. Now I've just been on the phone to a dealer and been up and seen a couple of cars and I have bought one of these vehicles, bid on two of them, but I've actually won one of them. It's not really something that I wanted and you're probably wondering why I've actually bought this car. There is a good reason for it. I thought maybe there might be some potential in it, but after driving it I think I may have made the wrong decision. But it's not the end of the world, as I explained to you fairly later on. But what have I bought? Well, I bought a Nissan Micra, an old 55 plate Nissan Micra. I'm going to give 250 quid for it. It's in part exchange, so let's have a look and see what I have actually bought. Okay, so here it is in grey, little 1.2 Nissan Micra. Got the windows down on it because it's very, very warm today. Like I said, I give £250 for it. It's coming part exchange from one of the dealers I buy off. I buy a few cars off them, to be fair. Starting to buy a bit more off them recently. This, I mean, on face of it, 250 quid doesn't seem too bad. Hasn't got much MOT left on it. Done 120,000 miles. It's 250 quid. That's what I bid at it. They ummed and ahed a little bit, but eventually accepted the bid. At that sort of money, it's basically your scrap out money. So worst case scenario, you can scrap out of it and basically come out with your trousers on, or might just lose 20-30 quid. You're not really going to have too much to worry about. Now when I went to have a look at the car, got the keys, started it up, already starting from my head, all the things are going, I'm not finding wrong with it. I'm sort of making a list of it and working out in my head what pounds and shillings and pence that's going to cost me to sort of fix, and I came to the conclusion that it was probably sort of borderline whether or not you'd fix it or not. But obviously I want to give bids on cars. When you go to dealers, it's a bit privileged really when you get to go into a dealer where they let you go around the part exchanges and sort of allow you to sort of have the opportunity to buy them, and you need to be realistic and obviously want to buy stuff because ultimately you'll end up, providing you're doing it correctly, you end up making more money out of the ones that do well rather than the ones that don't. So anyway, we'll talk more about that later, but it's not a bad old thing really. It is, what it is. It's an old car, it's decent tyre on it, 14s all round, about 8 mil on it, pretty straight on the side. It's got a little bit of a scuff here on the door. Honestly, most of that would probably come out, to be honest, or certainly would dull. We'll have a look at the interior in a minute because it's a bit rancid. It's just a cheapy old Nissan Micra. Nissan Micra is a perfectly good car. Obviously this is a decent model. I used to prefer the older model before this. I think it was K10 and K11 and stuff like that. The older models were a little bit better. These weren't too bad actually. They've sold a lot of these over the years. A couple of things that go wrong with them, usually sort of like steering faults were quite common on this model, modules and stuff like that, but other than that they were pretty robust. You don't get too many issues with them. I see at the back it's not a bad old thing. There's a couple of scuffs on it, what you expect for an old car. Black box fitted, it's not on it at the moment. It's been a learner car by the looks of it as well. It's had L plates on it or a pass plate on it. Pretty reasonable condition for an old car. We've got a little bit of rust going down there, what do you expect? Screw up on the door, but probably would dull slightly. Bit of damage on that wing. For 250 quid, you cannot really complain for that. How we're looking inside, well, it's definitely been used and it definitely wants a valet. It has got huge amounts of water bottles in there. I first before I saw that I thought either this man's drinking a lot of water, maybe he's a horse, or he's got a water leak. So I did check the coolant when I was at the dealership, popped the blade in and just had a look, and it's actually got fresh coolant in it, so he's not putting it in the header tank, so he must just be a very thirsty individual. It wants a valet, obviously, if you're going to go on with it. I mean, seat wise it's actually quite alright, it's not torn or anything like that. It's, just wants a valet, get all the crap out of it. It would certainly make a car. A little bit of trim bits coming off there, but the stuff can be easily rectified. It's done 120,000 miles when the screen comes up in a minute. The service light is over by 77,917 miles, as somebody said then. So it might be due a service. We've got an airbag light flashing straight off the bat before we even started it, so we've obviously got an issue there. We have no air conditioning, which has been a bit of a tricky drive back, to say the least. But anyway, inside it's not so bad. Outside, for 120,000 miles, it's as you would expect it to be. So where do things start to go wrong? Well, it started to go wrong when I turned that ignition key. Now I can do that for you now. It's got a little bit of petrol in it, so we've got plenty of fuel. And bang, straight away you hear a bit of a rattle. I think we can hear that now. We've got a rattle going on. Basically, there's a couple of rattles going on now. I'll explain what they are in a minute. But, I mean, it sounds alright. Got blowing exhaust, another problem. But the engine-wise, it's revving up fine. It's not got any hunting or idling issues like that, or misfiring. It seems to be okay. Although there is quite a lot of rattles going on here as well. We've also got another noise as well, and if you can quite hear it. There you go. That is the coil spring that snapped on the driver's side. So another fault we've got to deal with. also got the bonnet. They're usually quite reliable Nissan engine, and this one in fairness actually drives alright. However, sadly, this one has got a little bit of a noisy chain. Now it has quietened down a bit now since I've driven it back. It's got quite warm, but when I first started it, it was rattling its brains out. So sadly, it is also going to need a chain as well. And that's where on this sort of age of car, you start totting things up. You start to think to yourself, is it really worth doing? If I just rev this now, you'll probably hear it. I mean, there's a heat shield rattle underneath as well, so ignore that noise. I don't know if you can pick that up now, but there is a very slight chaining noise now, but it's quite bad when it's cold. We've also got blowing exhaust. We've also got a heat shield rattle underneath. I mean, that's nothing. That would just be a case of just removing the heat shield off or something like that. We're not going to bother with that. But the chain is a bit of a problem. Not that I'm an issue bothered about doing timing chains. I've got 3 timing chain jobs on the go at the moment. But on these, they're a ball ache. Absolute ball ache to do. Effectively, you really have to remove the engine to do them properly because there's so little room. You can do the chains without removing the engines, but it's so time consuming that it's just easy just to remove the engine. So it's doable, and the kit isn't even dear. You can buy a kit for these now for about 60 quid. But the time and labour involved is just ridiculous. So like I say, sadly, it's not a bad looking car for its age, and you know, if it was reasonable condition on a retail pitch with a 12 months MOT, 120,000 miles, driving all right, we didn't have a noisy chain or you replaced the chain, it's probably a 12.95 car in all honesty, if you put it through a ticket and got everything done on it. But you know, the list of stuff that I need to do to this, I mean, I've got a wheel bearing gone on this back as well. It's absolutely deafening when you drive it. It's that deafening I can't even test drive it. It's that loud, you won't hear me. With the exhaust blowing as well. I mean, you could end up putting a flexi on it, could be more, it could be rot underneath. We've not even got to any rot underneath yet. We don't even know if it's corroded. Nissan Micras do stuff with corrosion, especially this sort of era. I mean, it doesn't look too bad, but you know, we've not been under it properly, so we can't make a real assessment of it. We've not looked at brakes or anything like that. They don't seem that bad. There's not many other knocks I've found other than that spring, but we just don't know until you start going through it. And if you start totting us up, £250 for the car, I could probably get the chain done for £250 off a friend of mine who would take the engine out and put a chain in for me. I haven't got the facility to do it at the moment myself, so you know, we're on 500 quid before we even bought the chain kit. Then you need a spring, probably need a top mount, you need exhaust on it, your wheel bearing, we've got an airbag light on, and then you've got an MOT it, and then the bits and bobs. You're easily going to spend £800-900 on this car. I mean, fine, it'll be great at the end of it, and it'll probably drive really nice, but are you realistically going to spend £900 or let the car owe you, sorry, £900 done? I mean, it's only probably a 12.95 car. It's just unfortunately the numbers don't stack up for it, which is a real shame, because it's not a bad looking car, and you know, would have give someone a good more few years service hopefully, but numbers just don't work on it. So the question is, why did I buy it? Well, let me sit down and explain. Okay, so what do we do with this Micra? Well, unfortunately guys, the simple answer to that is just scrap basically, and I pretty much knew it was scrap when I went to go and have a look at it, which was the question, why buy it? Well, there's a good reason for that. The ultimate problem you have when you're buying and selling cars, dealing in cars, is stock. You need to buy stuff. So you have to put your name about the places, and you can get stock from all sorts of places. You can go to auctions, which I do quite regular, and you can get a lot of stock from there. But there is obviously risk to auctions because you're limited about your ability to check the car over. Obviously, you know, you're coming through, you can hear them, listen to them, you can look at reports and stuff, you can get in the car just beforehand and get a bit of an idea of the clutch bite, but you're not test driving the car fully. It is a gamble. You can make a fair assessment of a car, but it's never going to be 100% right. You're never really going to find all the issues and faults of it and stuff like that and have a proper in-depth sort of inspection of it. It's just not that way. And you've got private buyers, which is fine, but my experience with private buyers buying off public, although you can make a lot of money out of it, you cannot run a business off buying private buyers solely, because you just need to be doing it all the time. It takes up too much time. You get messed about by private buyers. You turn up to some place 50-60 miles away, taking age to get there, and they're not in, or they're around the corner, or they haven't told you stuff. To me personally, I'd rather just go to somewhere, i.e. an auction or a dealership where they have cars in, and you can just go and look at stuff and buy a multiple amount of cars, or try and buy a multiple amount of cars and then come away. That's what suits me down to the ground, which is why I like going to auctions, and I like buying from dealers, part exchanges. Further up the ladder, basically, they're selling cars for 5 or 10 grand. So obviously they're going to get part exchanges in that might be the sort of thing that I buy for a few £100 to a couple of grand. And I do buy quite a few bits off people. But to get in there really into the dealers and have the trust really for him to call you and say come and have a look and bid on some stuff, it takes a lot of time to build up. Those bridges you don't want to burn, so you just sort of have to take the rough with the smooth a little bit. That doesn't mean you get used as a dumping ground or anything like that. You know, you just go in there and you try to make offers on everything you get shown. You've got the ability to go and check stuff over. I'm quite friendly with my dealers. I can go and test drive stuff. I can have a proper look at it, and then I can get a better assessment of something, and which means really not only does it work both ways for me and them, but you know, it's not me about trying to work out am I overpaying for the car. I might be able to overpay for a certain car or assess it better and give a better price for it than I would have done maybe at an auction, where I'm a little bit more restrained, because obviously I'm trying to think worst case scenario, what sort of money do I need to spend on this car if X, Y and Z goes wrong. At a dealership, when you go in part exchange like this, you don't have that issue, because you can go and check stuff over. You've got that ability, more time, you're not under pressure. It's a lot more simple, and therefore you can offer more money, or in this case where something's really bad, you can just say, look, it's not for me but I'll offer X for it, or it is for me but I'll only offer X for it, whatever it'll be. Like I said, so I've bought lots of cars off this dealership before, made a lot of money out of it, and in reality for every 5 cars you buy you might get one bad one. And if you blow a little bit of money on it, it doesn't matter, because the other 4 you bought outweighed it, and that's what it's all about. It's a numbers game. It's as simple as that. So you don't want to burn your bridges. You don't want to go in there and start taking all the cream and saying I'll have that one but not that one, and I'll have that one and not that one, because basically they just won't call you again. So it's all about working with dealers, because ultimately they don't want the cars on their pitch either. They want them gone, they want them sent away, whether it's to auction or to guys like me who buy them. So it's just about basically working with your suppliers and make fair bids and assessment, and see if you can try and make profit out of stuff. And generally you will. Generally you will, and it all evens out quite well. And you know, you just have to get past the fact that yes, you've lost a little bit of money on this car. I can scrap this car, been on the app for 235 quid, so I've lost £15 and an hour of my time, but in reality it does not matter, because if I go back for the last 4 cars I've had from there, they've all made money, so it's not an issue to me. It's just a case of just get rid of it, move on. And if you just get into that mindset, especially guys starting out, and I used to do this a lot, if you start out, you get that first car where it's a disaster and you lose a bit of money on it, and your whole world seems to fall apart. You think, oh God, I've lost money on it and never again. You just learn from your mistakes, and you just build on, and next time, you know, you'll learn from it, you'll be better, and you'll make better judgment of stuff. Now this isn't a mistake buying it, it's just comes part and parcel of being a car dealer. You will get crap cars given to you, or you will buy crap cars. The thing to do is just to make sure that you get out of them quickly enough, get rid of something that's a problem or a headache, whether it's disposal or whether it's selling it on to someone else, whether it's trading it on, whether it's auction, whatever, and just move on to someone else, get the money back and reinvest it. I always found that to be the best way, just not to get too stuck on a particular vehicle or sort of get attached to them really. So this is nothing out of the ordinary. I buy cars like this every month. I must have a handful that I get bought and I have to scrap off, but it does not matter to me, because ultimately, like I said, the other stuff outweighs it. So it's just another day in the car trade. We'll get this Micra scrapped, get the money back in, and you just basically move on and reinvest it into something else. Which is a shame, because it's actually not a bad little looking car, and if it wasn't for the chain, I probably would be doing all the work. I'll be doing the exhaust and all the other bits and bobs and the coil spring and whatnot, trying to get it for an MOT, because there will be a decent margin in it, but not at that level. It's just not worth it. So I hope you enjoyed this short video. It just gives you a little bit of different context in the motor trade, really, sort of the negatives as well as the positives, sort of the day-to-day stuff that I have to deal with as well. It's not all sort of milk and honey in this game. It's not all about just go buy a car for 1,000, sell it for 2,000, and make £1,000 profit, and there you go. It doesn't work like that. You know, you have a lot of obstacles and stuff you have to do along the way, and a lot of stuff you have to deal with. And stealing stuff like this, you know, you waste the morning picking a car up which you don't really want, but that's the way it goes. So thank you for watching this one, guys. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. I've got new videos coming out every week, so please check them out, and I'll see you all in the next video.